All right, now let's get into some spoiler talk. We're here with Nick now. So now we're back with Nick. We're going to talk nonstop spoilers. We're going to talk about everything that was missing from the trailers. We're going to talk about some memes, which is weird, but when we get to it, you'll understand.
Yes, exactly.
And then we're gonna talk about spoilers from top to bottom. We're going to break down this movie. So first, we're going to start off with Tim's review of Justice League. He sent us a list of his pros and cons. So here we go.
Yep. All right. I'll take
Tim
it
from
away.
England.
Yes.
Talk like an English guy.
Yep. Tim from England.
Pip pip, governor.
Pros. Batman. I feel like visually and tonally, Batman has never been. Tim's gonna be like, you fucking idiot.
That is a terrible.
Yankee
my
motherfucker.
God.
I give it a
Mary
shot.
Poppins.
Yeah. Mary. Oh, I thought I would say Harry Potter.
You're a wizard,
Scared
Harry.
Potter. Yeah.
Oh, God.
All right. Sorry, Tim. Sorry, we love you. Thanks for being on the show. All right, so Tim says pros. Batman, I feel like visually and tonally, Batman has never been gotten more right. His arrogant, sarcastic behavior is ripped right out of the comics, and he clearly is the natural leader, and also very clearly smarter than everyone in the room. Superman, way closer to his comic counterpart, in a classic, inspiring way without him being too cheesy. And then in parentheses, he says, however, his one-liners in the Steppenwolf fight were very cheesy. Cavill's performance was also great. Cyborg, as another pro, Ray Fisher did an excellent job in the role, delivering an emotionally charged performance that was matched by a fulfilling story arc. Slightly disagree with the fulfilling story arc, but I digress.
We'll get there.
Another pro is character interactions. The way the characters bounce off each other in dialogue scenes was very natural and seamless. There are also some stunning visuals throughout the movie, mostly clearly done by Zack Snyder, and a good use of side characters. And then he gets into his cons. Cons, Flash and Aquaman. I feel that both Ezra and Jason were given too much free reign to experiment with their characters, and that just led to their characters being more and more grating and annoying as the movie wore on. And as it went on, it was less the Flash and Aquaman as it was Ezra and Jason pushing it to as far as they could go with doing whatever they wanted. Another con, CGI. It's so surprising that in such a big budget movie, there could be such terrible CGI. Like, honestly, I don't need to list the individual moments. I like how in this he puts, like, honestly. I don't even need to list the individual moments, but there's some truly shocking CGI in there. Villain and plot. The villain and plot are only mildly engaging, and I feel like simply a backdrop to have these heroes team up, and when the villain has actually defeated you. Realize how low the actual tension was in that confrontation and how low the stakes felt in general. And then in big caps, he puts Joss Whedon. It was blatantly obvious what scenes were reshot, and it was absolutely disrespectful how instead of honoring Snyder's work, Whedon and WB callously butchered his vision, doing whatever they wanted to create a marketable film. All in all, I thought it was thoroughly enjoyable as a film, and I enjoyed all those hints of what's to come in the future of the DCEU. However, due to the critical and more importantly financial situation of Justice League, I predict there are some big changes coming in the DCEU. Then he says, there you go, with a laughing face and a hang loose emoji hand. So, and then I'll give his score a little bit later, but there's some stuff in there that I definitely agree with. And the last stuff that when he talks about Joss Whedon and WB making it just a marketable film, hit the nail on the head. So,
any comments on that, Nick?
On that specific part, or his pros and cons?
Just kind of his comments. Did you have anything that you want to react to?
Yeah, the CGI. Let's just do it.
Okay.
Let's just do that. Henry Cavill looking like he comes out of a Muppet movie doesn't necessarily give me confidence to think that it's good. Yeah, like
So
I love how there's like no response to that. You're like, yeah.
Well, no, we were just pausing to make sure that you were done.
yeah. So one of the moment that I talked about in the non-spoiler review of just totally missing the complete dialogue, and I told this to Matt before we were recording, but I was glad that we got to see the second viewing of this, because right at the beginning, as we talked about, you have this big blockbuster film. The very, very first shot you get is cell phone footage of these kids interviewing Superman. And the very first shot is Joss Whedon reshoot, and it's a butchered lower part of Henry Cavill's face.
Yes.
That is how you lead. I missed everything. I had no idea what the kids even said the first go around, because and then that kind of, for me, that steamrolled into the coloration, a little bit of the score, and this is where I was like, just kind of in this uncomfortable, like, oh fuck, what are we gonna get into? It got a little bit better, and then seeing it the second time around, I laughed because the two kids who are interviewing Superman say, hey, we have a podcast and we want to know some different, we want to ask these different questions of you. One of them I thought was kind of funny, because they said, what is your favorite part of Earth? And he smiles, and he's like kind of looking off into the distance, and ultimately that question never gets answered. And I didn't even really think about that, but one of the, like, as soon as the lights come on, we have the 2 post-credit scene, and then I stand up, and the guy in the seats in front of us says, a question right at the beginning of the movie never gets answered. And I'm pretty sure that's what he was talking about, because immediately I'm like, good point. You never really know what he was going to say. Eventually, typically in movies, they would jump back to that.
I assume because of his smile, it was because of Lois Lane.
That's
who knows? Yeah. Who knows?
She is his world.
Yeah, I guess so. So he's thinking about super boning her.
Yeah. She's thirsty.
Yeah, she's thirsty. Yeah. So that was one of those things. Just jumping into elaborating on the CGI. That was my initial experience, and I was taken back a little bit of like, okay, how's this gonna go? There's some moments for me where the CGI gets a lot better. There's some good Zack Snyder moments. There are also additional ones, and I feel like it's reshoots. For example, you get Aquaman when he's talking to Bruce Wayne, and Aquaman sitting in the water. There are parts where the water doesn't look bad at all, and the backdrop doesn't look bad at all. It zooms in, and all of a sudden it looks like shit.
Yeah.
So I definitely think, not to get into a summary already, but I think a huge part of our review and of this kind of the feeling of the movie is going to be plagued by reshoots, whether it's unfinished mustache gate, unfinished CGI backdrop, quips that were added. And then
sort of. Mine's a different degree, honestly. My negatives and everything are on I think, a little bit different level.
Okay.
Like, CGI was bad. Some of the jokes were bad. But, actually, with this movie, we talked about the CGI being shitty. Nick, do you have anything else to add about the shitty CGI?
I have to laugh, because when I saw when Henry Cavill's talking, like, have you guys ever seen those videos on YouTube where, like, they have animals and then they have, like, a person's mouth, like, superimposed over it, like it's talking or it's making noises or something?
Yeah.
That's all I could think of with Superman when he was talking. All I could think of was, like, blah, 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 blah. And it was so distracting. And the thing is, like, because it happened more than once.
Yeah.
Like, if it was just that one opening scene, all right, I have no big deal. But, like, it happened later in the movie when he's fighting Steppenwolf. It happened later in the movie when he's talking to Cyborg, when he's talking a bit to Lois Lane, when he's fighting the other Justice League members. Like, it happened again and again, and it just looks so distracting. And in regards to, like, the other CGI, like, when they were at, like, the other thing that really bothered me about the CGI that really was distracting was when they were in Russia, and you saw, like, essentially the mother boxes trying to convert, Earth into Apocalypse. And you see, like, those, like tentacle things going through the ground and breaking stuff and chasing the car and stuff. it looked so, like I said, so 1997. I would expect to see that, I don't know, like in one of the superhero movies from the 90s, like Batman and Robin, or like just that, like how bad that CGI looked. It was like, I guess the best way I can describe it is it's like Matrix Reloaded, Agent Smith fighting. Everything's all like loopy and bumpy and doesn't look right, and it was just so distracting. I'm like, oh no, this person in this truck is driving away from something that is clearly not there.
That part didn't bother me very much. I kind of know what you mean a little bit.
I honestly think it's more of the colorization.
Yeah,
I think it's the way they had it colored made it look so like Gumby.
Yeah,
like it made it look like Skittles shooting out at you.
Yeah,
because of the colorization. I know, Nick, you weren't able to look at the previous trailers, but if you look back at the trailers where there was an obvious difference in color, like the darkness,
yes.
it was
so absolutely. Much. Oh no, I definitely, yes, I would agree.
So when I wrote in our non-spoiler thing on Instagram that this was a comic book movie come to life, that was part of my thinking, was because the colorization felt like it was almost etched a little bit of what's that one random like comic book movie that has the bubbles that are popping out of nowhere. You know what I'm talking about, Nick? It has it's kind of
like Scott Pilgrim?
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim. Yeah. How there's like some intentional drawn on things. That's almost how this felt. One of the moments where Batman is standing up and you hear the classic Batman theme and he's on top. It's right when they're first meeting Commissioner Gordon on top of the roof next to the bat signal, and he's standing, perched on something, and then he drops down, and it kind of he does that weird like swaying fall superhero landing thing. Mm-hmm. That was one of those moments where, because of the way it was colored, it felt like it was almost drawn and then kind of brought to life. Same thing with the initial parademon that we meet at the very beginning, when Batman captures the fucking robber or whatever he's doing, and then he lets him go. But there were moments in this where, as Matt said, very like Gumby, like Skittles, and that's well put, because it definitely was cartooned up, like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Well, with those moments, what I feel like really hindered them was there's no scale to them. No. Like it literally felt like they were on a set with like very limited space, and they felt so confined and so limited to where they go. Unlike the grander scale of like Man of Steel or Batman versus Superman, right. Yes. They would always pan out in those shots, whether or not it's CGI, Party Fest or not. It'd be panning out. Everything was tight knit, right on top of each other, no panning out, and it just looked really fake. It looked really plasticky, because of the way the tone, the way the coloring looked, and the way they never gave it scale. Yeah, and I thought it looked really clunky at sometimes. So the CGI, the end fight between Steppenwolf, I thought was that was probably, to me, some of the worst CGI. Was that whole battle when they started getting the upper hand? There's literally like the battle sequences and how they're trying to tie in the movements of the choreography of the Justice League members to fighting this imaginary character that's not really there. I thought sometimes it looked good and sometimes it looked awful. There's one where Aquaman he does a twirl with his trident, and he fucking, I don't think it's a trident, it's a pitchfork. Anyway, and he does like a twirl, and it doesn't even look like he's anywhere close to hitting Steppenwolf, but Steppenwolf goes flying back. It looks like out of like a wrestling thing. Like it's a fake pit, it's a working punch, and just like, and the person goes flying. It's
obvious, yeah.
And it looked bad. It was like a moment where you could tell like these two characters are not even close to being anywhere near each other. They're not in this scene together. And there was moments where they're doing that type of fighting. Like sometimes when Wonder Woman was fighting Steppenwolf, you could see this gap. Like she's not swinging at something that's really there. No. So they're trying to tie it in, and it did look bad sometimes.
I don't know if this is the right moment to bring this up or not, because this is actually your opinion that I just was like in complete agreement with once you brought it up to me. I think it was after our second viewing when you said that you felt the entire final fight was a reshoot. Yeah. And that was like just total eye-opening of like, yeah, I think you're right. And part of that might be the lack of CGI. I feel like every reshoot spot in this was rushed, and there's maybe one that they got away with because there wasn't much CGI. It was just on a set, and it's where they're all sitting there, and Aquaman is sitting on the Batmobile and on the
Lasso of Truth.
The Lasso of Truth. That one is obviously a reshoot.
That one we know for a fact is.
Yep.
We know for a fact that's a Joss Whedon thing because when we read the Wonder Woman script that he wrote in 2006, that literally is in that script where Steve Trevor is sitting on the lasso.
Yeah, confesses how beautiful
she is and everything. It's literally ripped almost out of that. Like,
so we know for sure that's a Joss Whedon, but that's the only reshoot that I feel came across natural and that it fit in this movie. After watching it the second time around, the reshoot spots the first time around were pretty blatantly obvious. It got even worse the second go around. The only one that I guess kind of escaped me until you said something was the final fight. And then as soon as you said something of like, I feel like that was an entire reshoot, I was like, holy shit, I think you're right. Like that. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, the reason why, it's a lot of reshoots in that one and like how studios put together those type of scenes is like, it's pretty telling when I saw a quote way back when Tom Holland was talking about when he was on Civil War. Really, the only actor he met at the time in Civil War was Chris Evans.
Right.
He never met Robert Downey Jr., even though he's literally standing right next to him in some scenes, and they're running next to each other. He fought Falcon, fought Bucky, but he never met them before.
Right.
He didn't meet him until, what was the most recent one we had? Homecoming, and didn't they just? Oh, and then now they're working with Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Yeah, now they're working. Now they're actually working with each other on Infinity War. But yeah, he never met Robert Downey Jr. until he worked on Homecoming. But yeah, there's this whole action scenes where he's talking to him, and they're doing a bunch of stuff. That's how crazy they piece these things together. It's like these people don't even have to be on the set at the same time, and it totally feels like, especially, and you could tell with Superman because of the mustache. Every time you look at him, it's different. He has the fucked up mustache, the fucked up lip. So all of his scenes were redone. So that means anything incorporating him is probably redone as well to fit his narrative that he reshot.
Yeah.
So it just feels like that whole ending battle, for the most part, is reshot. And we can even tell with some of the trailers that you see. When Wonder Woman drops down, she drops down to confront Steppenwolf. In the trailer, she says, "Shall we?" And Aquaman and Cyborg are standing behind her in the trailer. And this one, no one's there.
Yeah, she's just by herself.
She's by herself. And she doesn't say anything, obviously.
Yeah.
She doesn't say, "Shall we?" because there's no one behind her.
She's like, oh, fuck. Unfortunately, there's certain reshoots that were blatantly obvious where Henry Cavill is talking to Lois, or Clark is talking to Lois after he's kind of snapped out of it a little bit, and he's in the field, and there are parts where that's Zack Snyder. And then so there's parts where it's Zack Snyder. You could tell that's originally Henry Cavill. It's actually his face, in this time. The way the moment is kind of presented, the way it's shot, you're like, okay, that's Zack Snyder. And then there's like little things thrown in there, as Matt said, the itch, how was it being dead or whatever?
Did I smell?
A little itchy. Yeah. Did I smell? Or you smell good. Did I not before? Or whatever. Like those parts are clearly reshoots, and they're like spliced into this moment. And this is one of the gripes that I've had over other different comic book movies, mainly that when you're supposed to have this serious, like touching moment, you're going to throw in a couple jokes. And that is so Joss Whedon-esque. and I think it bugs me more in this because it's completely obvious that we have a moment, and then now his lip is all fucked up, and we're gonna have this quip line. Now it's good, and all right, now we're back into the serious moment. And so it's just kind of there's so many obvious parts, and like you said, the final battle, he's almost all CGI. Like it kind of reminded me of as much as I love the scene in Superman Returns where he's flying with the plane and he's just completely CGI. That's almost what this Superman felt like. Is where they're all there and Superman's just CG'd, into the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
okay, so we talked about the CGI, but I really wanted to start off with the pros. So let's
I know. we are going to get into some positives.
Well,
here.
let's start with positives now, and we'll go back into the cons later.
Okay.
So let's start off with some positives. I basically, some humor landed basically the funniest part, and I think this is almost not the funniest part, but one of the funniest parts, and I've heard pretty much unanimously through a lot of people, is when the resurrect Superman, he's fighting with everybody. Barry Allen tries to run behind him, and you can see Clark's eyes start shifting with him, so he's keeping up with him, and then the expression then on Flash's face, of like, oh shit.
To me, that was by far the funniest part. I lost it. That we both did. The first time we saw it, we just like holy shit, and we just lost it at the end. Actually, I don't know if that was a reshoot. That looked like Henry Cavill's.
No, it looked like him. That's the one thing that's kind of cool about this mustache thing. You can really see what was a Snyder thing and what was a Whedon thing with Superman. And you can look at his lip at that point. You can tell, like, oh, no, that's...
See? Snyder's got some jokes.
Jokes and jokes. Yeah, because he's about to murder the shit out of Flash.
Dude, it's so great. That part was awesome.
The Green Lantern cameo gave me a little bit of a pop.
Oh, man.
I actually kind of, like, flailed when I first saw it.
I'm not someone who kind of says stuff out loud in movie theaters for the most part. If I say something, it'll be under my breath. I'm pretty sure I said something to the effect of, oh shit, like loud in the theater of like, because it just caught me off guard. Yeah. I wasn't expecting it. And it was like one of those, like jolly, good moments of holy fuck, like this is happening. Unfortunately, nothing else comes to fruition and we don't get a Green Lantern.
Well, he dies pretty fucking fast.
He does. And then the ring floats away and that's
no one was worthy of that ring, apparently. The Superman fight between the Justice League I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was
that's probably my favorite part.
There is some sketchy parts of it all, but there is for the most part it's pretty solid. I thought Steppenwolf worked. He wasn't the greatest villain. He didn't have the greatest motivations of all time. Maybe I'm letting some of the trailer dialogue influence me a little bit, because in the trailers, Nick...
No protectors here. No lanterns. No Kryptonian. This world will fall. Like all the others.
He has some great dialogue that I just thought was so menacing and stuff, but it was not in this movie. But I thought he worked. Is he the best villain in the DC universe? Is he the best villain in anything? No. Is he the worst? No. I can think of at least a lot more that were much more worse than him.
Even in the DCEU.
Luther.
We're not going to talk about that.
No, he might be the worst in the DC.
Luther?
No, Steppenwolf. He might be the worst.
Oh, no, because the chick from Enchantress from Suicide Squad.
I hate Suicide Squad so much. I don't even. It's not even part of the universe. I always think of four. I just think of Batman vs Superman, Man of Steel, and Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
that's the only one.
No, but that's
you're missing the first most important one, which is Green Lantern.
Shut up.
That's not the DCEU.
Yeah, it was supposed to kick off. He was supposed to kick off a universe. So I didn't think he was that bad. And people were like, oh, it's a lazy villain. I don't know. I still thought he was more engaging. And it seemed like, if it was R, he would have some bomb-ass kill scenes.
I feel like...
he was nailing those Amazonians with a fucking axe.
Yeah.
He's like, I got the blood of your sisters on my axe.
Yeah, I feel like he did have some okay dialogue, not as good as the trailers, which is pretty sad.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, the fact that in the trailers he has better dialogue than in the actual fucking movie that was not present in the movie. But he had some good moments that I feel like had this movie been fleshed out a little bit more, you probably could have seen more of him and he would have been less generic. There's some stuff which we'll get into of like kind of leaked scenes, who knows if they're true or not, they were cut out of this, and one of them is him kind of talking to the mother boxes a little bit more, and the mother box is actually talking back to him, or something like that, and the way it's presented, I'm like, oh, that would have been kind of cool, you would get a little bit more of his purpose, because in this it is kind of sped over, it's glossed over and sped up a little bit, I feel like, in the Justice League we got.
One more, I got a couple more positives, and I'm pretty sure I might be on my own on this one, because a lot of people disagree with me on this one, and I've seen a lot of reviews where they say he was the down part of it, but I loved Aquaman.
Yeah, I did too. I liked. I didn't have an issue with any of the characters. I thought they were all different in their own way.
Flash was getting a little annoying. Like, oh, you wanted to bring up his blood sugar level? I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up.
I didn't mind Flash. The person that I mind the dialogue from was Batman. His quips got a little.
Well, his complete bitch 180 was very shocking to me.
Yeah, he was kind of the only one that bugged me a little bit. He had some really good moments in there, but then he had some where I'm like, all right, this is too much. This is not Batman. Even though I laughed at the something's definitely bleeding. That was a little too much. I feel like I didn't mind.
You can't say that. I laughed at it, but it's a little too much. Come on.
Well, I can still laugh at it, but it doesn't fit. Like I feel like for what just happened in the moment, you're just gonna you're gonna take away from the moment itself because you're gonna have this joke, even though the joke was funny. That's what I'm trying to get at.
It's a good joke, except for it's a bad joke.
I felt that Flash I enjoyed because he never quite became a superhero until the end where he saves the one truck. Everything else he's stumbling over himself. He's marking out to the bat signal, to the bat cave, to just being a part of the team. And I feel like had any of us just kind of gotten these abilities, not really sure what to do with it, we'd probably react the same way.
I felt a whole lot of Spider-Man from Civil War in The Flash.
Yeah, I think that's a decent comparison.
Hey, I'm the buddy, and I felt like I felt the Flash was very much like Spider-Man from Civil War, where he's like the new guy and the goofy guy, and like, oh, I'm going to be kind of starstruck, but I did like the part where Batman was like, or the Flash was like, I can't do this, and Batman says, just save one person and you'll know what to do. Like, I liked that line. I thought that was really good. Like, okay, like as soon as he does something and like breaks that threshold of like being a hero, then he's gonna get it. And so I really liked actually that part where where they're in where they first fight Steppenwolf and he jumps in and grabs that one guy and then pulls him out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I kind of misspoke a little bit when I said that the only once he finally becomes a superhero is with the truck part, because you're right. When he actually starts saving those people, he's like, oh shit, all right, I can do this. That was pretty cool. In the trailers, kind of ruining something that we're gonna get to in the end, but he actually does fight one of the parademons. I believe it's in this part. He like kind of zips around and then knocks one over. I'm pretty sure it's at that part. It ultimately ended up getting cut out of the movie, but yeah, you're right. That is a piece that he does kind of start going, okay, yeah, I can do this. That was a good moment for him.
I'm going to kind of conclude my positives with just like, once again, this is the Justice League. They're on screen. We get to see them together, work together, and maybe there's a future with this franchise. Maybe there's not. The box office isn't looking so good right now. They spent a lot of money to make this movie. Who knows how much they're really going to get back on investment wise. Again, like I said, depending on how this margin goes for them, we may have fucking Aquaman throwing a ball up against a window and having it hit him in the face in December. The way this, if that's the way they want to go, because they're going one way now. They weren't. The pendulum swing. It was darker, or, well, some people really thought it was darker on one end, and now Justice League has kind of come towards that middle a little bit, and like it's not working now. So they might do the full swing, like, fuck it, let's just make half of our movies, or majority of our movies, comedies. Batman will probably be the only dark character in the DC universe.
He wasn't even dark in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... I'll have some other positives that I'll bring up, just as we talk. But one of I think my biggest positive moments, or not really moments, but just kind of my biggest positives in this film were like you talked about, the fact that the Justice League is finally on screen. That was hard for me to, as choppy as this movie was. And the CGI, the dialogue that I didn't really care for, the score that I didn't really care for, which I'll get into a little bit more. It still is so hard to weigh it down because it is the Justice League. And this sounds very hypocritical, but it was just one of those moments where I felt like a kid and it's something that we've been fan casting for a long time. That is finally there, and I feel like the casting in this is almost spot on, to where I love Jason Momoa. I actually really enjoy Ezra Miller. I like what's his name, Ray Fisher as Cyborg, Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck, absolutely Henry Cavill when it's actually his full face. I love this entire cast and what they've done up to this point. And that made this film so enjoyable, is to finally see that. And then you get glimpses here and there of the Green Lantern, and different things where you're like, holy
Greek
shit.
gods. We got some Greek gods.
Yeah.
Zeus.
Yeah. So that
Ares was there.
There's some moments in there. You get a little bit of the Aquaman stuff, which really left me wanting more. And I'm pretty intrigued for the Aquaman movie, of like, okay, it's it's a little bit there. So there's some stuff in this where it's really hard.
Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's why they cut it like this. Now we're anticipating these solo movies a little bit more now. They didn't give too much away in this one, so it made the solo movies more valuable. Yeah, maybe
that could be almost like reverse Marvel in a way. I'm like, oh, we'll make you want more with the team up. Yeah, I guess. And some of the Zack Snyder obvious moments, I really loved. And one of them, it's so simple, and we kind of gotten a little back and forth before we started recording, but I felt like it was definitely a Zack Snyder moment. The song at the beginning, hold on, I have it noted down. It's called Everybody Knows by Sigrid or something like that. But it's the montage at the very beginning, and it's where it has a lot of slow motion moments. I felt it almost replicated the Watchmen intro, where you have this kind of epic song in the background, and I also feel that it fit Zack Snyder's tone, and kind of he likes the drums, and this kind of has deep drum, deep piano playing throughout, and just kind of it felt very epic. And it was some of the imagery when they're laying the roses down on Superman's memorial, and the way that even some of the lyrics kind of tie into it. I don't remember the exact lyric, but the lyric kind of ties into what you're seeing on screen. Those are just some of those moments that I really enjoy and carry a lot of weight for me. And continue on through the movie. I wish there was more of those. Unfortunately, you don't get a whole lot of like epic, like fuck yeah moments. But believe it or not, that was one of them for me.
I really liked the intro too. I thought that song matched with the visuals was pretty fantastic. Like that after the whole little scene of Superman talking to the kids actually got me a little bit more pumped. Like after seeing that, I was like, okay, cool, that was actually really well done. So yeah, there were moments, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the Superman fighting the Justice League. I kind of wish it would have been a little bit different. Just kind of fantasy booking, for lack of a better term, fantasy writing this in my own mind of like, he's going to come back and he's going to have the black suit or, whatever.
He needed a super mullet. That's what he needed. He needed
and a beard. And
a huge mullet and a beard. And
I'm telling you, that would have totally solved the mustache gate problems. You just have him in a beard. They'd be like, okay, boom, problem solved. but they decided not to do that. That was an epic moment. So I have a couple more positives I'll just bring up as we talk.
Okay, well, go ahead, Nick, if you have any. Go ahead and give us your positives, man.
like I said, I did that actually to what Shane was just referencing, the fight scene where they are when Superman first wakes up. I liked the way that was going on, showing that like Superman, like he's not all there, like something's wrong. Cyborg's armor is reacting to him, and Jason Momoa being like, he's wrong, something's wrong with him, and then the actual fight of him just showing him like what the actual strength is they're looking at with Superman, where he like headbutts Wonder Woman and he's throwing Batman around, and how fast he moves in conjunction with the Flash. Like he's able to just like turn while the Flash is like running as fast as he can. Like I really liked that scene. I thought that scene was really well done. I also liked the little hints at the old Tim Burton and Richard Donner scores for Batman and Superman. The little hints that they kind of threw in that you could just barely make out. I like the fact that those kind of little nods were there. I have to, disagree with you a little bit on the Aquaman, but we'll get there when we get to the negatives. But I liked Cyborg's character. I liked him kind of them making him all mother box, and the fact that, like, is he trustable? Is he trusting? Is he not? How he's like kind of the Frankenstein monster kind of character. I like the way that they did with him. I still felt like Lois Lane had little to do other than just be pretty and tell Superman that he's a nice guy. That's pretty much all she does in all the movies. I thought that overall the fight scene at the end with Steppenwolf was okay, but like I think you guys mentioned when you were talking about the CGI, that it was really difficult to kind of like believe. I guess I did I did laugh at the rooftop scene. I did like it when I know that was in the trailer, but it was done. I thought it was done really well in the movie too, where it's like Commissioner Gordon turns around and he comes back and the Flash is just standing there. He's like, "Wow, they just left. That was really rude." that actually was like that's exactly what they do. They're incredibly rude. But then I got thinking, like, why is Wonder Woman gone and why is Cyborg gone too? I get Batman doing that, but
they're in a rush. The movie's only 2 hours, man.
Clearly.
They have to get this shit done.
And you know what? Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Matt, because that actually, I think, helped this movie too, was the fact that it wasn't as bloated as I felt Batman v Superman was. I felt like the editing was a little choppy in Justice League, but I actually liked that it wasn't as long as I thought, some of the other DC movies have been. Like, I think there's that feeling of when you hit, 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 40 minutes, you're at a point where like you can lose the audience. And I think that there was just enough present in the movie that it kept me paying attention and kept me focused without it being like dragging on or like unnecessary, like let's add in all these random unnecessary things. I do have to laugh that they were so irresponsible with Superman that they just let the third mother box go.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
They're like, hold on.
It's like he found a penny on the sidewalk. And just flies away with it.
It's like, oh yeah, that giant horrible MacGuffin that if we let the bad guy get, we're all gonna die. Oh wait, no one was watching this thing? No one was like over like, hey, let's go get that.
And they don't even move. Cyborg and Wonder Woman, they just stare at it like, well, shit. They just let it go. They don't try to run or those are pretty fast people, right?
You literally have the Flash. Just like, hey, Barry, go pick that up real quick. Okay, cool, thanks. All right, thank you. Like that's all you had to do.
You had one job.
And I did like you guys mentioned the Aquaman scene where he's underwater fighting Steppenwolf. I actually really liked the way that was filmed. Like, I thought it was cool to show like the Mera taking, creating like air and then taking it away and dropping Steppenwolf, and like I actually was kind of disappointed that a movie with Aquaman in it only has him really in water once. And I'm like, really? Like,
would you want him to ride a whale out of the water going after Steppenwolf?
Absolutely. I want to see him. I want to see him. I want him to create a Sharknado. Okay. I want him to. Like, I wish I had seen more than just because as soon as Jason Momoa got out of the water, he was just another generic big fight guy, and I think that lost a lot of the credibility for that character. So he didn't have a lot of like defining features outside of that. I was like, what he's known for. It's like, and so it's like I felt that scene underwater actually was done really well, and I kind of was bummed that it was only like a minute and a half long.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're done here. Oh, I guess we're not in the water anymore. Like I thought that part was pretty well done. It's funny because I'm having, like I said, I literally watched this last night with you guys, and I'm having a hard time remembering specific details of the movie outside of like a handful of things. And I think that again speaks to
the fact that
and that's not a bad thing necessarily, but I think that kind of speaks also to it wasn't as memorable as I wish it was. So I mean, can we talk about the ending credit the end credit
Yeah,
scene.
go ahead. Is that a
Um,
positive?
It's funny because like you see Deathstroke and they talk about the Legion of Doom, and that should be a huge like holy shit moment for me, and I didn't feel it as much. Like I'm like, oh, it's Deathstroke, that's cool. I've seen him in the Arrow TV show, or I've seen him on like the CW. So like I didn't feel like I had that much surprise of like, oh my god, it's Slade, But I think the concept of it could be interesting, and if they did end up going the route of a Legion of Doom kind of fight versus Justice League, that'd be great. I would love that. But I think that if they were going to go with a villain, I think it would have been nice to see someone who has not been as prolific in media lately. I think it would have been nice to have seen trying to think of not Gorilla Grodd. What is her name? The Electric Lady. Oh my god, I'm mad at myself. That's Fight Superman. Come on, Shane. You know this, Shane. She's in the suit. Go ahead.
An Electric Lady with
who fights Superman. What is her name? Oh, it's gonna bug. Oh, I'm pulling my phone. she was in the Superman animated series. Like, I would have loved to have seen some like obscure character. I would have loved to have seen them in like, hey, if we're gonna make a team, let's make someone that has like isn't like the most generic. Or if they'd shown Sinestro, or if they'd shown like the Reverse Flash, or they'd shown not the Joker. We don't need the Joker, but like if they'd shown somebody that was I think a little bit more like I don't know, like somebody that we haven't seen saturated in a lot of like the other DC stuff, it would have been nice. Like Killer Captain Cold or something like that.
Are you talking about Livewire?
Thank you.
Okay.
Man, how did I forget that? But like,
I had to Google it if it makes you feel any better.
That's okay.
I after I like finally Googled it, I'm like, okay, and I know who he's talking about. But with the way you were describing it, I'm like, I have no idea who he's talking about.
Electric Lady. But like,
yeah,
but that end scene, like,
your TV.
But like, I would have loved to have seen like some of my friends saw this movie and were like, oh my god, the end credit scene, and it's just like, okay, that's cool, but like, I don't know why it didn't hook me as much as some of these end credit scenes have in other movies. So
I agree with you with the Flash and Superman one because I was way too distracted by his shitty lip. I felt like that moment should have been really epic of like we're finally getting to see this. However, to your credit as well, it was also done with Supergirl and Flash. Where they race, and I no longer watch those shows, but I did watch that episode, that for the first crossover they had.
Okay.
So that one wasn't as epic as I hoped it would be, but then once it got to the Deathstroke and Lex Luthor, and we talked about this coming out of the theater, the way Lex Luthor was dressed, he's bald now, it felt like Lex Luthor to me. I really like Jesse Eisenberg.
Felt like Hackman.
Like who?
Hackman.
Hackman?
I am Hackman.
He had the plaid fucking suit and shit, just like him. He's bald now, and it just.
He didn't feel like Social Network. I'm gonna create Facebook villain. He actually felt like Lex Luthor, which I thought was cool.
Ding 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 ding. It's like, oh my god,
winner. So any more pros anybody got?
I want to loop back to what Nick was saying about Lois Lane and Martha Kent. That was one of those moments where it's a mixture of pros and cons for me. I really liked how they were talking about missing Clark, where their life is at now, especially with Martha. I thought that was kind of cool. If you can imagine, hopefully we never deal with this, but losing a son is how it is for her. She's just now outlived her son. I thought that was really cool. Unfortunately, they only touched on it a little bit. I wish there was a little bit more of that, of kind of them and their companionship and how they're getting along without Clark in their life, and and Lois briefly talking about being back at the Daily Planet. It was hard enough for her to even come back. That stuff I really enjoyed. I liked the moments with Martha and with Lois. I just wish there was more. So that's kind of why it's a mixture of pro and con. But from what they did have, I really enjoyed.
How did Batman wait all that time and not pay attention to Superman's mom and know she was being evicted from her home. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if you're Batman, you know everything, and you're not paying attention to the mom of the guy you got killed.
Well,
like,
two things. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm like, come on.
Well, two things. One, I did kind of think that same thing because in the end of Batman versus Superman, he pays for the funeral costs, but she doesn't know who did it.
Right.
She doesn't know at the time it was him. So it kind of seemed weird that, yeah, he paid for all that stuff. Why wouldn't he take care of the house for her? Maybe he just didn't know. Maybe she's not saying anything. Maybe he doesn't know that it exists. Maybe, it's not like you can look at somebody's foreclosure. Well, the other thing that was really funny, Nick, was going in like a month before Justice League, we were actually saying what a good marketing campaign WB did by not showing a lot. Well, then like right after we said that, they dumped out like 7 2-minute clips of all parts from Justice League. So pretty much, since it only has a 2-hour cut, you could almost see the whole movie just in those fucking clips. But there's one moment, and that is in the movie, where Shane and I, it was the only clip we did watch.
You got a team here.
Superman can bring this team together better than I ever could. His strength
Doesn't matter how strong you are or what abilities you might
is
have.
more human than I am. He lived in this world. Fell in love, got a job. Despite all that power, the world needs Superman. And the team needs Clark.
Bruce is talking to Alfred about how, he was more human than I was. He had a job. He had a girlfriend. He got all this stuff. And I remember when Shane and I were talking about the clip, this is way before we ever saw the movie. We're driving, I think, to go see Thor Ragnarok. And at the time, so we're driving and I was like, yeah, that clip was weird. And Shane's like, why? I'm like, you think he would have known that before he tried to kill him?
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But now he's thinking about it after he's dead. But before he tried to kill him, he didn't give a shit. He didn't give a shit about what his mom or having a girlfriend or anything like that. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Well, and I was going to say, just real quick, to talk about the trailers, I was kind of bummed that Alfred didn't get to talk to Superman. I'm just going to say that. Like, that was in the trailer where it's like, it's like...
We don't know it was Superman.
It was Superman. Let's be honest here. We all knew it was Superman. Like, I would love to have seen, like, because that would have made sense with, like, the resurrection storyline from the comics of Superman, where he's, like, taking time to heal and rejuvenate with all the, the solar rays, and, like, he's ready to fight now. Like, that would have been great, like, if part of, like, Batman, like, helping out Superman was, like, having, like, that chamber for him to, like, rejuvenate. Mm-hmm. And, like, they're struggling and they need help and they're gonna die, and then Alfred's like, he's ready. And then, he's able to go out and then help and save things. And I'm kind of bummed. Like, that scene wasn't there. Like, I would have loved to have seen Alfred do more. Like, I love, I love Alfred. I love that his character even in Batman v Superman. Like, I really thought that was one of the better characters in both the movies. And I was kind of bummed he didn't get that much.
Actually, I did have that kind of question in my head, because it would probably be Alfred that would help him with this. But I was like, where did he get a suit that didn't have a hole in it?
See, and that's where it would explain the black suit.
Yeah.
As you have, like, Alfred who just designs it for him. I thought you could use a little bit different.
Maybe you go a little dark like Batman, like a dark suit. And that's where the black suit could come in and everything. And, that was, in this, we'll talk about it more later, but in this, like, leaked or whatever, this guy that apparently saw the Snyder Cut, and he does all this shit where he fills in a bunch of blanks and stuff. It is supposedly Superman, and it is Alfred that does provide him the new suit. In that description that we did read, that whole moment is based off of that, in the original Snyder Cut, it probably could have been black.
Yeah,
it could have been a black suit, and I wouldn't have doubted it. There is one question I did have for you, Nick, and I've seen a lot of people complain about this at the end of the movie, and I'm just throwing this out there. It's a total Hail Mary to see if maybe you would agree with me on this, Shane, too. People were bitching about how that little that Russian city started turning into flowers and shit, and like weird alien flowers and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you guys thought that was maybe a new Genesis Easter egg.
Maybe. I don't know. I have no idea.
Apocalypse would be the destruction of a world.
Right.
And New Genesis being the opposite.
Right. And introducing the new gods and fourth world kind of stuff, like.
And they were talking like it's alien, like flowers, like pretty. It's the opposite of Apocalypse, like what it was doing. So I considered like the opposite of Apocalypse is New Genesis. Right. So I was wondering if that was supposed to be That's what that was supposed to be.
Maybe.
I'm just making a Hail Mary. I haven't heard anybody say
I have
that.
no
Everybody
idea.
bitches about the flowers.
Yeah.
And if Nick's saying I don't know, then it's probably not even right at all.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
that
not
would
sure.
probably be the only Easter egg that we got, because I don't feel like we got shit in this so far. Like, ooh, yeah, well, all right, they're going to set up something else.
I do, again, and just kind of to make a point about the flowers, like, I have to laugh, again, with the bad CGI of, like, at the very end of the movie where they're like, man, I'm so glad that I'm here to see this. Man, I'm glad I'm here too. And it just looks like this just boring landscape with nothing there and just ugly CGI. It's like, I'm not here to see this. I'm not glad I saw this really ugly thing. And so, I just thought that was funny with, like, Superman standing there on top of it.
I think it's supposed to be the imagery from like the Justice League cartoon with the sun and everything like that. Like I think that's why it kind of had that orange tint to it and everything. That's just how I took it. The best way they can do it. The way that, you know, Superman's cape is flowing and everything like that.
Yeah. I don't know.
I got a couple random things before we get into our negatives. So, a couple jokes that I just made in my head, and a couple little things that made me laugh just for no reason, really, other than my own imagination. We literally made this joke when we were talking about the Danny Elfman score and hearing the John Williams score. He was going to use that, and I made the joke about hearing the John Williams score just before he backhanded Batman because of the way Danny Elfman phrased it. And I don't know if we quite heard it, but then he does backhand Batman into a police car. So I was right. Called that shit. When Aquaman starts dipping Clark into the regeneration pool of the thing, I couldn't help but think of when Lex Luthor's pushing Zod in there. You flew too close to the sun, and fucking. So I kind of murmured that shit to myself when he was pushing him down in the water. A couple other things that just a little bit of annoying. That suitcase in the beginning with the random terrorist for no fucking reason. It says this suitcase will blow up 4 city blocks. She throws it up in the air.
It's a
yeah. I was like, yeah, okay, that's fucking stupid. Same thing at the end when Cyborg's like, there's gonna be a lot of kickback to this, and Soups and him are not sure if they're gonna live or not. Like, I don't want to die, you know, and shit like that. And then it's just like, boom, and then there's a little bit of a shockwave, and and he's like, oh, I'd rather die. I'm like, you don't look any fucking different. Like, again, there's no significant. They tried to make this sound like it was going to be the biggest explosion ever, and it just knocks them like 3 feet backwards onto their ass. Like, that's it. And it was just like
the first time I watched it, I kind of agree with you. Like, it didn't feel that epic. The second time, I felt like they contained it, a lot of it, and within the two of them, and that's why the rest of them didn't feel all that much. But yeah, it wasn't like this epic, like, supercharged. It was definitely toned back. Fucking reshoots.
So that's kind of that was just on my random stuff notes.
I want to talk about the score a little bit, because this is a mixture of pro and con again. Nick, you brought up the fact that Danny Elfman loops in kind of some of the stuff from the Tim Burton. I believe it was actually Elfman who did the original Tim Burton score. And then the stuff from John Williams in the original Richard Donner Superman movies. I actually really enjoyed how he incorporated those themes into the movie. I thought he did a really good job, because there were very subtle moments that I could pick up seeing the Superman movies 1,000 times. Like, you know, when he first meets his mom, or sees his mom again, there is a theme playing in the background that I guarantee is taken from the farm scene from the first Superman. It has the same exact tones, and there's quite a few of those throughout the entire movie. So I really enjoyed that. I wish it would have been more Hans Zimmer or even Junkie XL who stole that idea and said, you know what, I'm going to have my own themes and, you know, and my own score in this, because I feel like, to me, in my opinion, they do a much better job at making the scenes feel more epic, and then kind of stolen that and incorporated the original themes into it. I thought that would have been really cool, a really cool way to do it. For the most part, the score, I thought it was pretty corny in a lot of parts. The part that Matt talks about with the douchebag bringing the suitcase or the briefcase or whatever.
It was obnoxious.
It was a straight ripoff from from the original
It's
like Batman.
It's like when in Batman Forever, when Two-Face first shows up at the circus or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like this overdone like clown music going
Yeah.
on in the background. It was just fucking annoying.
When you made the joke, Nick, of like you felt that this movie should have been from like 1997, like Batman Forever or whatever, that's exactly what I thought. As well, is there were so many moments in this, the horrible CGI, the shitty score in the background for the most part was almost as if they were just trying to take from the 90s and replay it now. There were a lot of moments where I'm like, man, this does feel like you have even the guy who's carrying the suitcase is such a like classic villain with his his hat and the suit he's wearing is totally like, I feel like George Reeves should have busted out of a wall and been like, I'm here to stop you and block some bullets or something.
Should have tied a girl to a railroad tracks and twirled his mustache. And...
Exactly.
Yeah,
yeah, so there's just some corny moments, and I felt that the score didn't really help with that. The score had really cool moments. The one I talked about earlier where Batman is, perched up on the thing and then he jumps down, feels like it's straight out of a comic book, and you get a little glimpse of the original theme that Elfman did. So those parts were pretty cool. I like how he incorporated it. Other than that, most of the moments didn't feel epic at all.
And I think that's one of the problems that carries out through the entire movie is that things that should feel epic and things that should feel like big and powerful and monumentous and things that like should carry a whole bunch of weight literally feel like there's like, okay, like, all right, they're punching things.
All right, so let's get into our cons here. So Nick, we'll let you go first. I mean, I guess the CGI, we already know that. So anything else that really stood out to you?
Well, to tap just a tiny bit more on CGI, I know we're talking a lot about this, but we haven't brought up Cyborg, and like I hated his CGI. Like I thought he looked awful. Like when he was in like his like hoodie, and you just saw like his face, the eye, and the glow. That was cool. But as soon as you see him like show up like full Cyborg, I thought he looked terrible. I thought that it just looked so like rushed and not right and just looked really bad. At the very end where you see him like kind of changing his armor to look a little bit more like football armor or football pads, I thought it started to look a little better at that point, but the majority of the time I could not stand Cyborg's like visuals. Like Cyborg as a character was okay. Like I thought he had an interesting backstory and they did an okay job with him like being kind of conflicted as like the monster, but like visually he was just so distracting. Like I just like his gun didn't look good. It just I don't know. It was very distracting to me. In terms of negatives, like I think we've touched on a bunch of it. A lot of it just felt kind of underwhelming. Just like everything, like the big fight scenes with Steppenwolf and the big fight scenes, even like the Superman fight scene. I thought it was a cool fight scene. I liked it, but it just felt so like okay. Like the only time that I felt like there was any weight was when Superman and Wonder Woman are headbutting each other, and like that was like, oh geez, that was like the only time I felt like, and when Superman turned and was gonna hit the Flash, like there were little parts, but like for the most part, it just felt kind of like just forgettable, I guess is the way I would describe it. Like it just felt very, very average, and I think that speaks to what really disappoints me most about the movie is that this should, and I know we're carrying in kind of the expectations, but this should have been bigger. It should have had more, longevity. It should have felt more real, and ultimately it really didn't feel that way.
Incoming dickish comment from me. Now you understand where we are on the Marvel side of things. Mm-hmm. If you have a very simplistic movie and we're expecting something so epic, a la Doctor Strange.
I was about to say exactly how we felt about Doctor Strange.
We felt going into that like there were going to be so many epic moments, and it wasn't just going to be jokes and fun and very simple, mm-hmm. and ultimately forgettable. That's exactly why we walk out of certain movies. Thor Ragnarok would be another one, just feeling disappointed, where it doesn't feel like there's much epicness to it, and anytime it starts to build to something, which Justice League is is guilty of this as well. It starts to build to something, it just gets torn back down. And then, you know, and they would rather have kind of mundane jokes and very dumbed down story rather than actually delving into a little bit of characters. And not always. That, you know, we're stoked for Black Panther. That was
Yes.
we made the joke that Thor Ragnarok had awesome trailers before it. Justice League had some shitty ass trailers except for Black Panther.
Yeah, the movie. Yeah, you're talking about the trailers before the previews.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
For a second, I thought you were talking about the
sorry.
trailers leading
No.
up into the movie. I'm like,
No, like
I thought it was the opposite.
Yeah, all the previews that we got, you know, when you're sitting in the theater waiting for the movie to start, Thor Ragnarok had Star Wars, had Justice League, even though it was
Pacific Rim.
scaled down.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
there was a bunch of them where we're like, holy shit. And then like Justice League, there
Pitch Perfect 3.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
Pitch
like-
Perfect is a funny movie and disgusting and totally worth seeing.
It is, yeah, absolutely. I agree, Nick. I agree. But just to kind of give you an idea of, you know,
Do this podcast with you.
Hey, long live the Bellas, okay?
Oh man, but just to kind of give you an idea of how our mindset is when we're expecting something, you know, and then we leave like, oh, that was a little, you know, a little bland. And what's funny is I'm really curious. We're not there yet, but when we get to our scores, I feel like we're agreeing on so much, and yet our scores are gonna be pretty broad. So we'll kind of see how it
Like
goes.
gauging Nick, I think Nick and I might be closer than I think.
We'll have to see.
We'll
Yeah,
see. I'm
yeah, we'll
gauging
see.
Nick's scoring what he was talking about earlier with Man of Steel and stuff.
Mhm.
So we'll see.
Well,
on
I
that.
gave Batman versus Superman a fucking 1.
Well, that's because that's what it deserved.
I gave
Oh, man.
Ragnarok 1.8.
And that's not what that deserves.
Yes, it is. Yes, it fucking is. So, do you have any more cons you want to talk about?
My main one, which I just touched on a little bit, so I guess this is perfect,
Okay, then you
perfect
don't.
segue.
All right, so then we'll just go on.
Is unfortunately the simplistic storyline, the reshoots, how choppy this was, and Warner Brothers yet again has not learned to just leave it the fuck alone. And you get so many people who on Twitter walked out of Batman v Superman and were like, that was a horrible piece of shit movie. And then the ultimate cut gets released and people are literally apologizing to Zack Snyder on social media of like, oh fuck, sorry, I didn't realize it was a stupid studio. Then you have Suicide Squad, they do it again. Then you think they learned with Wonder Woman, like, okay, we got a pretty solid movie. And nope, then it turns around and not only we were flat out lied to, and because I do think, okay, let me back up a little bit. I do think a large part of this is Snyder's film. There's a little bit more, Matt said 70-30, which I agree with. Unfortunately, the 30% takes away so many solid moments in this, whether it's just the quips, which there are some funny ones in there. I enjoyed some of Flash's parts. You know, and even like the something's definitely bleeding. You know, there's some moments in there that are pretty funny, but ultimately, the studio is constantly putting out like, okay, this is the movie we're gonna get. You look at the trailers and how the trailers are put together and how epic they feel and the music that's behind them, and then this is the movie you end up with is kind of like, well, fuck. And it's also more like my biggest gripe and my the biggest negative for me is how basic the story was and how anything that started to feel a little epic got cut down by any sort of reshoot, any sort of quip, any sort of horrible CGI, and for it to be a $300 million budget, and
Reportedly.
reportedly,
Maybe more,
yeah,
maybe less.
right, but yeah, I looked up on Box Office Mojo and they don't have anything as far as
Yeah, they haven't
the
released it
budget.
yet.
Yeah, so
People are speculating 300 million.
yeah, still that you invest all of this money and then you're going to go back and do reshoots, and they were saying that okay, the reshoots are just going to be very subtle things. No, there's a lot. There's a lot that they decided, you know what, we're going to throw in these lines here and that are really evident with Henry Cavill of you have a complete scene and that's going to get butchered now because of you know, Mustache Gate. So that ultimately is my biggest negative, and you know, I send it to you.
All right, so this is I'm going to run through some small ones real quick. I felt I wrote down the dialogue was lame and dumbed down.
Yep, simplistic.
Yeah, it's very simplistic. Second time around, I caught a couple more things, some interaction between Diana and Batfleck. I thought they had a couple more meaningful moments than that, but other than that, it was pretty dumbed down. Point A, point B, point C, just keep chugging along. The end was very cheesy and became such an afterthought. Again, talking about it was a reshoot. It just didn't feel as epic as it possibly should have. But then this is my main gripe with this movie. I put the pandering to the critics and the naysayers really neutered this film. So many times dialogue was used to explain critics' negatives away. And they used this movie to try to feed into that hatred online about their movies and try to give those people no reason to hate their movie now. To no way they could dislike this movie, because look what we're doing. Henry Cavill's going to run down an alleyway, rip open his shirt, and there's going to be an S. We're going to have tons of cheesy dialogue. We're going to have tons of jokes. We're bringing all this to you. It's brighter now. There's more contrast to it and stuff.
The John Williams theme.
The John Williams score, all the nostalgia to it, the constant meaning of trying to give fan service when it didn't really mean jack shit in the end. It was obnoxious. I could not believe that they pandered so much to a group of individuals, and they would constantly use dialogue to explain situations away. Like, we need this because of this, because we need to protect civilians, because, you can't have death anymore. You can't have consequences for their actions. It was just... Go ahead, Nick.
All I could think of at the end when... And yes, I get Superman is someone who saves people, but that felt so shoehorned in when he was like... there are still civilians here. Hold on. And he flies away. And I'm like, that literally was in response to Man of Steel. And
yes, thank you.
It's a good criticism to have because Superman is someone to save, but that felt so shoehorned in, just like in Batman Superman, where they're like, we're fighting in a completely vacant area where there's nobody.
Yeah.
Like, see, so those little lines of dialogue that just are like, that is not for anybody but for naysayers who are like, no, you see, they're actually saving people, and it's like, oh my god. It just takes away from so much.
Even the ending speech that Lois Lane gives, it's like there's darkness. Oh, you didn't?
I could not hear. I was like, it was so like just mumbled and like over like so many different visuals. I didn't hear a word she said.
She was basically talking about like darkness isn't really dark until the light is gone or something like that. It was basically like almost giving a speech to the people that have talked about the universe being dark and that this is the light now. Justice League is the light. Mm-hmm. BVS and Man of Steel. Well, people say Man of Steel's dark. I don't agree with that. I guess you can kind of say Batman versus Superman it's literally dark. But it just... This is the light now. That's like what her speech was. Like, the darkness is dark, but we're going to have light. Look up in the sky for hope. And then you see Superman take off and fly into the sky. Like, it was such a pandering speech. It was so annoying. It was really, really annoying to me. A lot of things I think were done to pander to that crowd. By cutting this into 2 hours, they completely neutered and ruined their previous movies. I have a list of shit that just fucking annoyed me. One of the things that pissed me off there at the end, what happened to the mother boxes? What the fuck happened? They separated them and they're gone now? Are we doing anything with those? Is he coming back? Steppenwolf is still alive. But no, we don't know what the fuck's going on with those mother boxes. Why did the fucking dirt move on Clark's casket at the end of BVS?
Yeah.
No answer to that. He's obviously pretty fucking dead when they pull him out.
Can I jump in here real quick?
You're going to ruin my flow.
Yeah, I know. One of, that would be another big gripe is, and that I put in the non-spoilers, they only tie up some of the stuff from previous.
Right.
And that's one of them. And it was almost, again, to the mass appeal marketing of like, we don't want to talk about that stuff and waste time on it. This has to be 2 hours long. Let's just forget it and move on.
Cyborg says that he was basically made after Superman died, that the mother box kicked on after Superman died. We clearly saw in Batman vs. Superman the box make him in the email logo. We had the email helped out by Lex Luthor with his logo for him, and Diana watched that. She fucking watched Cyborg being made by a mother box. And he was totally different. In this one, they showed him where he actually had a majority of his body. He was missing like legs and part of an arm. And like they showed some side footage of him and Cyrus fucking doing stuff. It wasn't anything like we saw in Batman vs. Superman. He was pieces in Batman vs. Superman. And then the mother box made him. But Diana knows about these mother boxes, but doesn't say shit, even though she just watched a man be made from a mother box. She doesn't fucking say shit. So they ignore that. And then the flash warning in Batman vs. Superman, the dream or whatever of the apocalyptic future, the nightmare scene. Flash comes back basically telling Bruce Lois is the key. Was this really our payoff to Lois being the key? Was this little slapstick moment where Superman grabs Bruce by the face and says, "Do you bleed?" And then basically chucks Superman to the side like garbage.
Batman.
Superman chucks Batman to the side like garbage. Basically, his character getting thrown to the side to incorporate jokes and everything, and then Lois brings him back. Was this really the answer to that? Was this really Lois being the key? If it is, the worst payoff in history. In history, it was pointless. Really, the world was going to be apocalyptic after that? That was it? Superman was going to be on Darkseid's team or something like that now? No reason why Superman would have been evil after that, other than he was confused. And he was just running on emotions. Just fucking stupid. And then I talked about this with Mike in our segment with him, but he called it. He fucking called it. In one of our podcasts we did, we were trying to figure out why in Batman vs. Superman, Diana says, "I walked away from mankind 100 years ago." In Wonder Woman, that Nick didn't watch, it ends in a very positive fashion. And there's no reason at all, really, why she would walk away from humanity. We even talked about in our Lost podcast where Gal Gadot was questioned about this, and she basically said, well, you make some mistakes sometimes, and you just need to change that. Because Wonder Woman would never step away from mankind, so she wouldn't do that. So basically just ignoring what was happening. In this, we got an explanation that she was depressed because Steve Trevor died. That was the big payoff. Mike said that. Mike said, oh, maybe she was just depressed. He was joking. And that was their actual line. $300 million movie, and they used that as a story point. That she was depressed 100 years ago because Steve Trevor died. Mike came up with that, for God's sakes.
Well, give him some credit.
And I think Batman is one to speak about letting go of things when he talks about Martha and his parents.
That would have been funny. Like, he's saying Steve, and she's like, Martha, and he's like, ah!
Don't say
that would have been
funny.
So it just like all those story points that they've built up over the series of movies and stuff like that, all that, no payoff. And if that was the payoff for a lot of it, it was stupid. They've only had 5 movies under their belt right now. 5 movies. And they're already fucking things up with Cyborg saying that he was made after Superman's death. Like, really? Really? The email joke was the biggest joke, one of the biggest jokes from Batman vs. Superman. How do you not remember the fact that he was made by a mother box in Batman vs. Superman? No, and it felt like that was a reshoot. Like that was somebody not following the universe's line. Yep. And so it was just
not caring about, what do they call it? Continuity?
Continuity.
Continuity. Continuity.
Continuity.
I like Shane's version. So it was just obnoxious. I couldn't believe that's how they ultimately ended this. I guess you could call it phase 1. If you want to use the Marvel terminology, this was the end of phase 1, and that's how they do it. Just completely butcher everything. Yeah. So it just, So if anybody's got anything else to add, maybe we'll do scores.
I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, other than saying, I think that I did not like Aquaman. Just
oh, shut up!
Wow. I did not like Aquaman. I thought that he was
How
very.
could you not like Aquaman? He's drinking Jack. He saved people. That's what you guys want. It's so funny when he's talking to Bruce, and Bruce is talking about Gotham. He's like, that shithole.
Yeah.
He calls Gotham a shithole. And then he talks about the strongest alone is alive or whatever. And then Batfleck is like, oh, well, Superman died at my side. My point exactly.
Yeah.
Like, he just stay alone. I want to be alone, I mean, he had so many great parts.
I just didn't care for him.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I think I summarized everything pretty well. Ultimately, like my negatives and stuff. So,
real quick, I just want to dish out some. We were trying to combine all this stuff together. I asked a couple coworkers at my work what their scores were for this, and used Thor Ragnarok also as a comparison for them to kind of gauge where they're at. And the reason why I asked them is because they're probably the the majority moviegoer. This is the majority's moviegoers' personality, not us, because we're looking in deep in this shit.
Right.
One of these guys didn't even see Batman versus Superman and just went and saw Justice League.
Okay.
So it's he just went and saw Thor. He's only watched like 4 Marvel movies, maybe 5 out of the 17. It's the more casual moviegoer.
Right.
So he gave Justice League a 4.2 out of 5. Okay, this guy's actually not he's not trying to score to but he enjoyed it. He did like it. He gave Thor Ragnarok 4.5.
Okay.
So he thought that was funny. Another guy at my work who follows more of this stuff, and he pretty much watches almost all the comic book movies, he gave Justice League a 3.8 and gave Thor a 4.2. So kind of, gauging what your common moviegoer experience is. And for the most part, it seems like the casual moviegoer, as you can see on Rotten Tomatoes, really likes Justice League. So Nick is not the casual moviegoer.
I'm okay with that.
That we thought. I thought he leaned a little bit more to the casual moviegoer. I guess not. Do you have any other scores? I know Tim was 3.75.
Yeah. Mike, I think, gave it 3.5. He didn't say on our example, but I think he told us in a text message that his was 3.5 out of 5. So I believe that was his. If it's not, I don't really give a shit. It's Mike.
Jeez.
So go ahead. Give me yours.
So actually, I'm right in line with Tim. 3.7 out of 5.
Okay.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's because of the nostalgia. I think that held, and kind of some of the feeling that I got watching this movie, even the second time around. It's not. I fear that ultimately it will be forgotten. Yeah. It doesn't live up to, not even close to Batman v Superman, not even close to Man of Steel. One of those that I find so many more entertaining things the more that I watch it. But it's still, and I knew I was going to sound hypocritical because I do, a lot of those flaws do hold a lot of weight to me, but there were several moments in it where I was like, holy shit, this is live action Justice League.
Right.
And ultimately that just kind of, puts a stamp and I move on. I'm hoping, I don't know where it's going to go from here. I'm hoping this is not Zack Snyder's last film because it's not even his. And it's sad that you have Man of Steel and Batman v Superman that have so many layers and so much depth and so many iconic moments. And then you end up with this as kind of the trilogy. I hope he ends up making one more, whether it's the next Justice League movie where it can fully be his or something. I hope he's, he hasn't completely stepped away, but that remains to be seen.
All right, Nick.
I have to actually agree a little bit with Shane in the sense that this movie felt very forgettable. I would classify this in the same way that I would classify like 90s action movies, like
what you talking about, Willis?
No, I mean that not necessarily in a disrespectful way, but just very much in a disposable way. Like there's a lot of them that the Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal 90s movies where it's
greatest
like
movies ever. Under Siege, man.
Under Siege is not the greatest movie. But
Under Siege 2?
Yeah, I was gonna say second greatest movie, only behind Under Siege 2.
I look at it like movies like Speed or movies like movies that I just look at and they're like, okay, they're okay, like they're not harmful, but they're also don't feel like they're really trying. And I think that's what's going to be the biggest thing that's going to make Justice League, as Shane kind of put it, forgettable. Like I think that when we're looking 2 years from now, we're not going to really care about Justice League. Like it's just going to be kind of there. And so I think of Justice League kind of like Luke, cold pizza. It's like, all right, I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it's okay. Like it could be
nice.
That's definitely the way I see it, and so I'm giving it a 2.5. Like it's just right in the middle for me. Like it's not horrible like Batman Superman, but it's also not great like some of the other movies we've seen. So
yep, that's almost exactly where I thought you were going to go, because I think your Man of Steel score was like 2.5, 2.6, and you said it was just a little bit below Man of Steel, so that's what I was guessing.
Yeah,
was your score. With this movie, again, yes, it is Justice League, and it's something that I've been wanting to see for a very long time. kind of where Shane was leading with. This was supposed to be the Zack Snyder trilogy. You know, this was it. This was supposed to end it right here, and it really fell flat. It really fell flat. I am nostalgic for seeing Justice League on screen, but there was so many factors into this movie that just make it not necessarily it's not a good movie for the universe.
Yeah.
If you ignore the previous universe shit, it could be a decent movie. It's a little bit disposable. It's generic for the most part.
I think that's what they were trying to do.
And then it could fly by colors. Like the second time I watched it, when I'm not expecting things, when I'm not expecting the black suit, when I'm not expecting a mullet, all the payoffs to the questions we got from Batman versus Superman and Man of Steel, when I was expecting to get all that payoff and I didn't get it the first time, I was frustrated. The second time around, I knew what I was expecting and I was able to enjoy it a little bit more. This felt, with dialogue and scene transition, it felt very Suicide Squad-ish. It definitely brought it down, and I think I gave like Suicide Squad a 2. The nostalgia factor will always keep this up. Seeing these characters fight are awesome. The 180 they did with Batman, I completely flabbergasted by. I don't mind lightening up Batman from Batman versus Superman, but the way they lightened him up in such a way where his fighting didn't seem right, he just seemed like a completely different individual. It didn't feel like the Batman from Batman versus Superman that I think a lot of people did like. I mean, people didn't like him killing people, but we don't have to have him kill, but just have him still be that badass. I didn't feel like he was a badass. He says Clark like he's fucking in love with him at the end when Clark gets knocked on his ass from 3 feet from that explosion. And he's like panicking when Superman gets hit. It's just weird. I don't know what they were trying to do with that. I don't know if they were trying to make this connection, like they were true friends or something. I never believed they were really true friends. I just felt they had the same goal. I never wanted them to be best friends. So it was really weird to me that they took Batman in that route. The super cheesy lines by Superman at the end. I was like, is this really what people have wanted this whole time now? Is this guy still bothering you? And he punches him. I'm like, ugh, are you fucking kidding me? It was annoying. The missed questions, the payoffs brought it down. I got to be at least somewhat make sense on my shit, so I gave it 2.8. So
all right,
it's if you just look at it as a Justice League, don't look at the universe, then yeah, it'd probably be a higher movie. It'd probably be a little bit better movie. Very disposable, very generic. It's not going to do anything with the universe. It fell flat for the most part, but it is Justice League on the fucking screen.
Yeah.
So,
and I said this at the beginning of the movie when they were showing them the DC like credits, and you see like 30 or 40 of the Justice League characters, and I'm like, I would love it if they could get to that point, and if to a point where we can see, the Question and Huntress and just a mountain of different kind of characters, and I don't know if they're going to be able to do this if this is the way they're going.
Yeah, I feel like I have a question for you, Nick, because I feel like they are now stuck in between satisfying the fans that they have generated by Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and the people who really, really appreciate and enjoy those movies, and swinging far to the other side of, the really, really light tone. We know that you enjoyed Logan. If DC were to swing all the way over and ride the same wave that Marvel is, would you feel satisfied being a Marvel fan and a fan of all the movies and of the way that they have kind of produced them, or would you feel that it's just going to be a cheap ripoff of Marvel and it probably won't actually play out the way that you hoped?
I have no problem if DC wants to stick with dark, that's fine. But I think they need to stick to it. I think they need to be consistent. I think they need to have an identity that matches the quality and the type of films they're trying to make. Perfect example I can give of this is the Transformers movies. Like, I am not a fan of those. I do not like those movies. But they all feel like they fit together. And they all feel like Michael Bay has a type of style that he wants.
Formula.
Yeah, he has a formula. And you know what? Even though I hate those movies, they still make so much stupid money that they keep making them. And if DC you know, if DC wants to do something, you know, kind of like if they want to go the dark route, fine, stick to it, own it, and give me something that you actually are committing to. Because I feel like every movie is a different direction. Like Man of Steel was all about hope and optimism until he kills somebody, and then Suicide Squad is all about fun and goofy until it gets really serious for no reason. And Batman v Superman is all about dark and brooding, and then we're not gonna follow through with any kind of continuity. It's just like, let's just throw a whole bunch of stuff at it. I didn't see Wonder Woman, and I hear that one worked, but and then Justice League comes in, and it's like, okay, we got the humor, which is cool, I like that, but then it also conflicts with this dark and brooding tone that you had tried to establish over the last couple movies. And so I'm not against the idea of DC staying dark. Yes, do I want them to be more fun and lighthearted and actually show what a comic book is and what I would like the DC universe to be? Of course. I want to see Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, those cartoons on the screen. I want to see that. But if it's not going to do that, that's okay. There are dark storylines that DC has done that they've made work. And I feel like the cinematic universe hasn't done that yet. And I feel like if they're going to go forward with this, which they're going to, if they're not going to just scrap this whole DC cinematic universe and try to start over again like they did with Green Lantern, then they need to figure something out. They need to figure out what it is that they want to be and actually own it. And I feel like they haven't done that yet. And I think Justice League is a perfect example of that. It's just all over the place of nothing. It's lukewarm milk. So
Nice. Yeah, you absolutely answered my question. I completely agree with you. Even though we tend to favor different sides, I would really highly recommend you watch Wonder Woman.
Oh, I want to. I genuinely do. It's one of the ones I want to watch.
I would be curious of your opinion on that, because I feel like Wonder Woman is a perfect melding of where DC needs to be, and this is just my opinion,
to get that mass appeal.
Yeah, to get the mass appeal, but still kind of stick to. There was a lot of really good tones and themes in Wonder Woman that I felt satisfied with, and and different layers and stuff like that. So I felt that was such a perfect blend. And Justice League, they're swinging a little too far, and I feel like it's just going to keep going. And yeah, I agree with you. I was just curious, where you were at, because a lot of people who don't like DC are just begging that they don't like DC because they didn't do solo movie, team up, and they haven't followed the same exact formula that Marvel has. And so Matt and I have talked about this before, but we feel that there is room for all of them. Marvel has done a fantastic job at their marketing and the way that they pump out the movies, and they are making a shit ton of money, and that's awesome. And there's absolutely a place for them. We feel that there's a place for the R-rated Fox of Logan and Deadpool, and DC, in our opinion, I'm kind of speaking for Matt here, but needs to be somewhere in the middle. And I feel like they are stuck with not knowing which direction to go, and now it's being reflected in the box office. And it's kind of depressing, because who knows if they're going to continue to press the panic button and, blow up the whole universe at that point, or flashpoint it and start all over. Who knows?
Maybe. Hey, all right, so bam. Okay.
Yeah.
Bam. All right. So that's going to conclude our podcast. We're going to cut this a little bit short. We're going to extend some topics maybe into next week. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page at Comic Movie Marks. We are at 97 subscribers.
Holy shit.
3 away from the big 100.
Yes. Wow. A big thank you to everyone who has jumped on board the Mark train and decided to come along this crazy ride with us. As it's pretty awesome that, yeah. At best. Yeah, I'm shocked. We always joke maybe we'll get to 100 subscribers by 2020, and here we are approaching it quickly. And so it's pretty awesome. We're getting a lot more interaction. So be sure to check us out on YouTube at Comic Movie Marks. We're also on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, And you can also find all of our episodes on our website, comicmoviemarks.com.
You can also find us on iTunes at Comic Movie Marks or in the Google Play Store. Look for Podcast Republic because it plays all Comic Movie Mark podcasts.
And while you're there, please leave us a damn review.
Yeah, you might win a game, fuckheads.
Yeah, one at this point. Whoever fucking leaves a review is gonna win the game.
Yep, because that's what we're doing. We're doing a giveaway. You don't get to know anything else.
Yeah.
You're a bunch of dicks.
Call of Duty. That's
WWDU.
it. Yeah, World War II.
In case I don't see you. Oh, wait. Nick.
Yes.
Thanks again for coming on. We couldn't have you in studio, but you're somewhere far away from studio.
Yeah.
But you're here.
Yeah, all the way across the United States or something.
Yeah.
Because we're in Vermont.
Yeah, we're in Vermont.
But yeah, a big thanks to Nick for coming on. I'm really glad we were able to make this work. It's been a struggle getting guests on, with our new recording schedule. And I'm really glad we were able to make it work. You brought on, as always, great insight to your side of and your viewpoint on things. So thank you again.
Well, I'm glad I could help out, and like I said, I always love coming on and talking to you guys. And I think my pink headphones right now, that the ones that actually got to work, are going to be perfect.
Beautiful.
For this
I like
movie,
it.
right?
The pink headphones will make plenty of appearances on this show, I'm sure.
Along with Pitch Perfect.
Yes, we'll be reviewing that.
No, we're not.
Yes.
No, we're not. I don't even know what the fuck it's about. It looks like a 2-hour
It's
version
about
of Glee.
It's about making a dream come true, okay?
Yes, exactly.
Through the power of song.
By the power of song. There, boom. That's a great summary.
Mm-hmm.
In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.